Sorry. I knew it. All right. I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Park Ridge Park District Board of Park Commissioners. This is Thursday, September 16th at 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mhm.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bendy,
Here.
Commissioner Bowe,
Here.
Commissioner Coyne,
Here.
Commissioner Hulting,
Here.
Commissioner Leduc,
Here.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Here.
Commissioner Grau.
Here. I move to allow Commissioner Hulting to participate by electronic means for the September 16th, 2021 regular board meeting due to personal illness as per the Open Meetings Act and Park Ridge Park District's ordinance number 7-2.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Melissa, you can hear us okay, right?
Yes, I can.
Great. All right, will you call the roll?
Okay. Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe, Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Hulting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Yes. Okay, would anyone like to amend, add, or delete an item to the current agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Come on up. You have 3 minutes, and if you would just state your name. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ben Kacharik. I'm a parent here in Park Ridge at Carpenter Elementary, and my family's been here for about 5 years in this community. And coming into the school district now, we're learning more and more about all the great resources that are provided to parents here. And one of the reasons we moved to this area was the school district and its high renown and ratings. But I am compelled to request that the Park District and the school district be in deep consideration about Beyond the Bell support. I think that learning more about the initiative and the program as it exists, it seems that there is a huge gap between the demand and the supply or the support. I found a statistic that I thought was interesting. After School Alliance, a nonprofit dedicated to advocating for after-school care, states for every child in an after-school program, approximately 2 more children would be enrolled if a program were available to them. And it seems anecdotally that feels true from the parents I've spoken to as a working parent and getting to know more and more of them every day here in this community. It feels like there is a big need there. I know I've seen that the website is referencing the search for job applicants. And I think that the government here in the state is making some initiatives here this week, actually, that would help support parents trying to find employment with 3 months of child care assistance from the state. That just got announced on Monday. And Illinois sending a bonus of up to $1,000 to everyone who works in a child care center or child care home in Illinois. I'm not sure if that applies in this case with the Park District support with Beyond the Bell. But it does seem to me ultimately like if there's an issue with not being able to supply the demand, then the other question I would have is whether the Park District is the sole provider within those schools, because it's so important for parents to be able to know in the age range that I'm in with kindergarten, second grade, that the school that we're at could support our kids before and after at that same location. And I would just love the commissioners to speak to those topics or be in deep research about ways to improve that process, because I know other organizations exist that are supporting school districts right next to us, like Right at School LLC, that supports many school districts here, Evanston, Des Plaines. I was just doing a little research on my way here tonight, finding about other organizations that are meeting the demand in their communities. And I would love to see the Park District be able to do the same, because it feels great to be able to have the system supporting itself, school district and Park District within the city. But one way or the other, it feels like parents need more support now. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, and we will be talking a little bit more about Beyond the Bell later in the agenda. So thank you. Okay, we'll move on to approval of minutes. I move to approve the regular board meeting minutes of Thursday, August 19th, 2021. Thank you. Any comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, same sign.
Right.
All right, they pass. Report of Park District officials. The president, I have nothing to report. Our attorney, Amber, is with us today. Is there anything that you need to speak to us? Thank you. All right, Executive Director Mountcastle.
Yes. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. I do have a few updates. We've been working, the staff has all been working very hard on the Oakton public engagement process. We've been, we're scheduled at over, I think it's more than this now, but over 22 community group meetings, in addition to 3 community-wide meetings that will be held for the whole public, the general public, and then tours of the facility. Our goal in all of this is to educate the public, have them ask us questions and get their feedback. And that's all in preparation for the survey that will go out, the letter, the fact sheet, and the survey that will go out to all the residents. So we're trying to get these meetings in a short period of time. So I thank all of the staff for their extra hours and time, evenings and weekends, working at these meetings. And also, we had sent it out to the board. I got some great comments back from our president. But if you could all return that with any comments you may have by September 24th. In terms of a short COVID update, we are, our latest COVID situation we're dealing with is the mandate that, regarding the staff working in the schools and the requirement that they are all vaccinated. Or agree to testing weekly. So there's a lot that goes behind that in terms of getting the testing set up and the word out to all the staff that, the reasoning that the Beyond the Bell staff and the people working in the schools are the ones that are required to be vaccinated. So that's HR and the staff has been working very hard on that. You'll be hearing some great news about the bonds, the sale of the bonds from Andrew. I know is there from PMA, and he will be sharing a presentation about that. But very proud that we maintained our AA plus bond rating, and I thank Superintendent DeAngelis for her hard work on all of the documents and presentations as well as PMA. I was on the rating call, and there was a lot of discussion about how we handled COVID, how our numbers were looking with COVID, and they were very complimentary about how we managed through that process. The other thing I've been working on, the big thing is reviewing policy. We're going to see some financial policies, and the commissioner policies are moving along. We did receive the attorney comments back last week, and we will be going from there. So it's looking really good. And so we hope to bring it to the board October 7th. And that's all I have at this point, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Sorry. Looks like there aren't any questions. Are you moving on to
Okay.
marketing and PR then? Or?
Great. Yes, I'm sorry, yes. And if there's any questions on the marketing or human resource reports, I or Margaret would be happy to answer those.
Just before we move on, do you mind if I just raise a question about the survey items?
Yes.
I'm just curious, given the short timeline of making sure that we get all of the various goalposts met, if we give feedback on the survey, when and how do those final survey items get approved? What's the timeline for that kind of wordsmithing that probably needs to go into the final survey questions?
The final questions, for the comments from the commissioners, we'd like them by the end of next week. We do have a little wiggle room for that. I believe the survey goes out, Margaret, jump in, but November 12th, right?
It's October 18th.
You said October 18th.
It's due November 12th, sorry. It will go out to the public October 18th and come back, due back November 12th. So are you asking when your comments would be included, or
Just
I'm not
more,
understanding the question again.
will the board meet again just to give final approval on those questions, or is that more just something that'll
If the board would like, yes, we could, what we'll do is we could do a draft with all of the suggested questions, and then we could send you, I'm trying to think that through, but we can send you the comments from the rest of the commissioners, and then we can send you the draft that we've come up with from that. And then we can talk about it at a board meeting. Is that what you'd like to do? We didn't plan to do that, but we'll see how many comments we get. But we can do whatever you want, however you want to handle it.
I'm just curious about the process, and if any other board member wants to speak to it, I'd be open to making sure that various feedback is incorporated into the final product.
Great.
So you'll have that ready by the next board meeting so we can see the final draft.
Yes, as long as we get all of your input by the 24th, that will be doable, sure.
Okay.
Margaret, I can't see Margaret's face, so if she's agreeing to that. Is Margaret in the audience?
The next board meeting, Gail, is October 7th, which is
Right.
kind of cutting it close to when we would mail. So we'd probably send it around again via email.
Okay.
I don't think we'd discuss it in the board. Like, we probably would do another email round and then maybe the final at the board meeting.
That sounds good.
If you guys want to approve it.
Does that work
Is
for the
that what
board?
you were saying, like, you want the board to approve the final version of the survey?
I just wanted to make sure that everybody had the input that they felt was important for the final product.
Okay.
We'll try to handle it by email, and if somebody is not satisfied with that, we can always call a special meeting to talk about it. It's not a problem.
Okay. Any other questions for Gail? And I think, Gail, you were going to talk about the unemployment report, or Sandra was going to during finance.
Sandra's going to cover that in her report. Yes,
Okay.
that appears in finance. Yeah.
Okay.
Before we go past me, I'd like to just thank Commissioner Bende for helping us on Friday night with the Friends of the Parks 50/50 raffle. She came out and helped Friends of the Parks, and we raised another $473 to the scholarship program. So thank you, Commissioner Bende.
Okay. We'll move on to finance.
I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent DeAngelis.
Thank you, Commissioner Tunnel. As President Grau mentioned, we did have a question from one of the board members about the unemployment report. So I wanted to clarify that the report was intended to inform the board of the COVID impact on payroll administration. Unemployment claims are a complicated process. So we do have a consultant that we work with, Unemployment Consultants, Inc., and we're informed by them when initial claims are filed with the state, and we are identified as an employer. So depending on if the claimant has other jobs, we may or may not be the responsible employer, or we may be responsible for a portion of their claim. The numbers in the report do not necessarily represent how many employees we are responsible for paying unemployment expense. It's how many people our payroll administrator has identified that have filed claims within the last 2 quarters, so that we're tracking when we get our statement from the Illinois Department of Employment Security as to what we're owed, that everything lines up and that the hours match up, et cetera. So as these numbers are decreasing, it might make more sense to discontinue this report and instead report quarterly once we've received that statement from IDES that determines our actual expense. So if the board is okay with that approach, that's kind of my suggestion.
Okay, it was my question, and it was my impression that this is how many people were no longer on our payroll, mostly due to COVID. And so you're saying that is not true.
No, that is the number of people that had been employed that have filed claims for unemployment with the state over the last 2 quarters. Because we get notified when they file the initial claim. They're required to certify with the state at certain time intervals, but we don't know if they're certifying or not. We don't really know what the outcome is until we get the bill from the state on a quarterly basis. But we have to know who we need to look up to make sure that the hours, that everything matches up and that the data the state has lines up with what we have.
Okay, so for instance, not the September 4th date, we did not in a certain time frame look up 70 people.
It's like the running list of who's on our list that had filed with the state.
Okay, so we might add a couple every week or take away some, but we're not looking up these individuals month after month after month.
I guess I'm not sure what you mean by looking them up.
You're not processing 70 pieces of work for September 4th.
So I have to think about what we might have to do on a.
So this report comes from the company, the consultants.
Our payroll administrator put this together to identify kind of the pieces of data that she's keeping track of.
But we never received this report until COVID hit. The board didn't.
Correct.
So I guess maybe I should just say, how is this helping us right now? Like, what should we be taking out of this report? Because my thought was that we had all these people waiting to come back, and that's not true.
No, that's not what the report shows. As I mentioned, it was initially intended to inform the board regarding what was needing to be looked at when we, how many names each week, are they going up, or kind of the workload related to payroll. But I agree, it's not very informative of how that is currently. So my suggestion would be to eliminate that, and if I think maybe we're more interested in what is the impact financially, what are those amounts that we're paying based on our quarterly statement.
Okay, so I guess I'll frame this around Beyond the Bell. That was one of our biggest amounts of employees in that program, right? Is that true? Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Well, it was heavily impacted by COVID. There were a lot of people that didn't work last year because of it. So I was wondering September 1, when unemployment stopped, if that would change. And so we have no way of knowing how September 1 impacted this number.
We won't have a good idea until much later. Like we won't get the third quarter report until November, and that goes through the end of September, so it'll have some portion of it.
Okay, well, if we're only getting a quarterly report, then I don't think we should see this at every meeting. And then I just think we have to be clearer on what it is that what the purpose of this is. Because I thought it was that we had these employees that we no longer employed.
No, it was what unemployment claims are we tracking? So they could still be employed and working, but if their hours were reduced, they're still eligible for unemployment.
Okay.
So it does not relate to, who had been furloughed. I mean, there's some relationship, but that's not what this report was trying to show.
All right. Does everybody understand that, or is it just me?
No, I've been confused as well, Cindy. So I'm still a little confused. So
I
I
think
can ask more.
yeah, again, the unemployment, the whole process is confusing, and I don't know, maybe Gail, you can help out, but I think initially we wanted to inform the board of what kind of volume of work we were, looking at with these claims every week.
I think where Professor, sorry, it's been a long day. For where President Grau was going with this, for Christ's sake, is that if we had a pool of people that were collecting unemployment, that would be a good pool of people to go to and say, like, hey, we need more help with Beyond the Bell. But if that's not necessarily what the situation is, then that's
I'll let April speak to how they, I think, have been leaving no stone unturned in looking for employees. But yeah, I don't think this report is really helpful in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah, I was saying, my mic was off, that I looked through this presentation that Paderma provided today, and it is a extremely complicated process and thing to understand with the unemployment. We have a consultant that, through Paderma, that we pay with our membership through Paderma, that manages a lot of it, of the claims. And if they've been offered a job, most of the, they're very strict about not paying, unemployment if they've already been offered a job. So it's not an easy thing to explain, but the bottom line is we're not paying for all these people to be sitting on unemployment. We only pay a very small portion. I think Sandra was going to share. I did not hear. Did you share the amount that we're currently paying, Sandra? It's not even that much year to date. So, yeah, no, there's not people that we've asked to work to come back that are sitting around waiting, to work, if that's your question. So we need to do a better job of explaining that. And I agree. It's hard to understand what, this all means. So we understand, and we'll change that moving forward.
Yeah. So going forward, I'll just report on the quarterly amount, and at the next meeting, I should have the second quarter's final number. I can tell you that our expense for the first quarter was $8,925.75. So, and that includes, the federal subsidies that were available. I mean, it has been reduced by that, and the second quarter expense is estimated right now to be less than $4,600, but I don't have the final number yet. So at the next in the next finance report, I would like to eliminate this report and then just report on that, and then going forward, as hopefully this winds down, we'll report on the next quarters.
Sandra, can you tell me like what it was you were paid out like 2 years ago, or how does this 8,000 relate to like 2 years ago or something?
So we rarely paid out unemployment. Occasionally, we typically budgeted 15,000, and I had never seen it be used. So we did budget higher this year because I was not sure, what would happen with the legislation. But I think I want to say the most probably we paid total was probably between 5,000 and 10,000. And that would probably have been just like one or two, maybe full-time employees or something.
Okay, and just to clarify, the 8,000 you mentioned that you think, was that first quarter or second quarter?
That was the first quarter.
First quarter. That was that was subsidized. That 8,000 was subsidized. Is that what you mentioned? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Thank you.
So if anyone has any other questions on the written report, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll review the financial performance details in our monthly report by funds. Okay, hearing none. The treasurer's report on page 16 shows our cash and investment position at the end of August remained pretty strong at 9.9 million. As we'll see in the projection graph, this is below budget projections by approximately 2.3 million, as that property tax second installment due date that was delayed to October 1st ended up such that we did not receive any distributions in August or July. The budget anticipated we would have received about 3.2 million in those months. So the portfolio reports on the following pages, 3 pages, they continue to reflect the low interest rate environment. So Andrew's going to talk about how that impacted the bond sale. But as property tax receipts have begun to come in here in September, I will be working with PMA to review our investment options. Page 20 begins the monthly report by funds. And the total net surplus across all funds is now below budget by about 1.2 million and lower than the prior year by about 2.7 million. Now, these variances continue to be driven by the combination of delay in property taxes as well as slower capital spending than budgeted. In the next page on 21, the general fund, you can see how we're lower than budgeted revenues because all of the revenues in this, or the majority of the revenues in this fund come from property taxes. While expenses continue to be below budget, but greater than the prior year. So the resulting net surplus of 900,000, it's lower than budget by about 2.1 million and better than the prior year by 2.9 million. The general fund anticipated to receive 2.7 million of property taxes in July and August. So you can see how if we would have received that, we'd be doing pretty well. And that's also reflected in the recreation fund on page 22. Recreation revenues were 66% of budgeted through August. And it declined a little in July. It was 68% of budget. Expenses are also lower, about 70% of budgeted. And the resulting fund surplus is 48% of budget. And it's also lower than the 61% of budget as of July. And that's pretty much driven by the delay in property taxes. We anticipated in the budget to have received 547,000 in the recreation fund in July and August. And if we had received that, the fund surplus would have been 89% of budget. So we hope to continue to see better performance moving forward as we have actually started to get property tax distributions coming in. And the capital fund on the next page, as we talked about in previous meetings, you can see the 1.6 million variance in deficit to date compared to the budget. It is mostly attributable to slower spending than budgeted. And projects are underway, so we hope to see more expenses here. And lastly, in the operating fund on page 24, through August, operating results of about 550,000 surplus to date are about 1.9 million below budgeted and 1.2 million lower than this time last year. Again, reflecting the delay in property taxes. If we had received the 2.3 million of property taxes budgeted in July and August, that surplus would be greater than budget. So the fund balance projection table and the cash and fund balance projection graphs show the actual cash position represented by the light blue line and the fund balance projections represented by the yellow line are projected to return back to better than budget after we get that second installment of property taxes in October. Hopefully that will remain better than budgeted as projected at year end, but we'll continue to monitor that and, make any adjustments as necessary. Does anyone have any questions regarding the financial reports?
Just sarcastic, how many times are you going to have to say because of the delay of taxes next month?
Well, next month we should be a little bit more on track.
They're starting to come in.
But we'll still be behind. So it skews the performance. So I've tried to, identify how much is attributable to, how we had budgeted out. And if we add back that number, kind of gives us a better picture.
That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions at all? All right, so we have a suggested motion. I move to approve for payment vouchers in the total amount of $358,554.16. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Did you want any questions about the packet that she sent out earlier this week? May we have a call for a vote?
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne,
Yes.
Commissioner Hulting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Yes.
Thank you. We have another suggested motion here. We'll definitely have some discussion.
At this time, I think Sandra wants to introduce
Yep.
someone from
I'm
PMA.
sorry, before you
We'll
make the
we'll
motion, we
rewind.
wanted to introduce Andrew Kim from PMA, who has provided a presentation regarding today's bond sale and is going to walk you all through it.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. It's always nice to be the bearer of good news, and I think I do have good news for you tonight. And I'll just go through the presentation, and you'll see the results of the bond sale and the various impacts of the bond sale on the district's finances in the presentation. So as we start off on slide 2 here, I just wanted to give an overview of what the purpose of the financings were.
Can I just ask a question? There's no way for Melissa to see this, right?
Oh. Yes. It's the
And
last version that I.
And Gail, you have this probably.
Yeah, I went through it today. Mhm. Maybe I can share it. You know what? I'll send it to Melissa. It was a draft, but I can send you. I think I can do that. Yeah, let me do that.
That would be great. Thank you.
I've sent
Yep.
it. I've sent it to her, Gail.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the one I think that Sandra has is the most recent version as well.
Great.
So just to, should I go forward?
You're okay to go ahead, right, Melissa? Okay.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So again, a little bit of background on the financings. There were actually 2 bond issues that were sold today. One is the Series 2021A bonds, and the other is the Series 2021B bonds. The Series 2021A bonds had 2 purposes within that one bond series. One was to refund the district's 2013A bonds, and the second purpose of the 2021A bonds was to borrow additional funds. And the 2013A bonds that were refunded by the 2021A bonds had an average coupon of 3.74%. So that is reflective of the interest rate that the district is currently paying on the 2013A bonds. And therefore, the idea is that with today's bond issue, if you're able to pay less on today's bond issue, you would generate savings. And then regarding the new money portion, I believe my colleague Bob Lewis presented in July that he anticipated that new money portion would be around $850,000, but the actual amount of that would fluctuate based on the results from today's sale. And so in a later slide, I'll provide an update of how much the district is actually borrowing for those new money purposes. The 2021 B bonds were issued to refund the district's 2013 C bonds, which were referendum bonds that were authorized by the district's April 2013 referendum. And the average coupon on the 2013 C bonds is 3.97%. And in this particular case, because these are referendum bonds, any savings that is generated from the refunding that occurred today would be directly passed on to the taxpayers. This would be not necessarily savings for the district, but more specifically savings for the taxpayers within the district. So slide 3 is details of the 2021 A bonds. The total par amount was $4.135 million. The amount of the refunded principal on the refunding portion of the 2020 bonds was $3.46 million. And then the new money proceeds actually generated $900,000. So in July, we were anticipating $850,000 based on where interest rates were at that time. And because interest rates have come down since then, the district was actually able to borrow an additional $50,000 for new money purposes. The dated date is October 7th, 2021. That indicates the date on which the funds will actually hit the district's bank account. The final maturity of the bonds is December 1 of 2028. So the bonds will be completely mature on December 1 of 2028. And there is no call provision, meaning that if in the future interest rates do go down, the district is not able to refinance them again for more savings. If you wanted to put a call feature on them, number one, it's not industry standard for units of government to put call provisions on bonds that mature within 10 years. And obviously, December of 2028 is within 10 years. And if you were to put a call feature on them in order to take advantage of low interest rates, if they were to occur in the future, you would have to pay a premium for that feature. And as you'll see in a minute, these rates are incredibly low anyway. So the tax status is tax exempt. The underlying rating is a AA+. I think Gail mentioned that earlier, and it's an excellent rating. It's one notch above, or one notch below rather, the highest possible rating the district could have received. And the winning underwriter, which is the firm that bought your bonds, was Northland Securities. Some details of the 2021 B bonds that was issued in a par amount of $5.35 million. And the amount of refunded principal from the 2013 C bonds was $6,050,000. The dated date again is October 7th. And the final maturity of this bond issue is December 1 of 2033. So it is several years longer, and therefore what you'd expect is that the interest rate on the 2021 B bonds would be higher than the interest rate on the 2021 A bonds. There is a call provision on this one because, again, it does mature beyond that 10-year kind of standard time period. And the call feature is December 1 of 2030. So after December 1 of 2030, if interest rates are lower at that time, then the district can refund these 2021 B bonds for additional savings. Again, these are tax exempt. The AA+ applies to this bond series as well. And the underwriting firm that purchased these bonds was Baker Group. And so you'll see on slide 5 here the results from the sale this morning. So for the 2021 A bonds, we had 4 firms submit various bids on your bonds. And of course, we're going to award the bonds to that firm that submits the lowest interest rate. And in this particular case, it was Northland Securities. And they submitted a true interest cost, that's what TIC stands for, true interest cost, of 0.625%, which is obviously a great result. In fact, the next best bid was 0.79%. And you can see the next three bids that are kind of close to each other, within 0.02% of each other, or 2 basis points. But the winning bid was well below that at 0.62%. So, that's just indicative of a really strong result for the district. So slide 6 shows what the savings estimated, what PMA estimated the savings to be back in July, based on where interest rates were at that time. And you can see that we were showing roughly $50,000 of savings each year, for a total savings of $360,875. Now, in our industry, it's standard to take the present value of those savings. And that's the number that you see highlighted in yellow, kind of the second yellow line from the bottom, at $342,000. So even though the gross savings is $360,000, the present value of those savings is $342,000. And then what we do in order to measure how robust the refunding was, or how robust the savings was, we take that number and divide it by the par refunded, the principal that was refunded, in order to get the percentage there of 9.9%. And that indicates kind of how strong or how robust the savings was again. The GFOA indicates that refundings should be done if there's at least 3 to 5%. And so you can see that even back in July, when we were estimating these results at 9.9%, it still was a very robust and strong refunding. So indicating that the district should move forward at that time. Also, the average annual cash flow savings was $45,000 there, as you can see. And then the actual results from today's sale, the annual savings increased about, let's say, $56,000 a year, for a total of $386,587.50. And again, the present value of that was $369,000, which generated a savings percentage of 10.67%. And we saw the average annual cash flow savings increase to $48,000. So the next slide is slide 8. And this reflects what your debt service is that is subject to your debt service extension base. So the 2021 A bonds, as the 2013 A bonds before them, were subject, they were issued as limited tax bonds, which means that they are subject to your debt service extension base, which is an annual amount that the district can pay for any bonds issued on a non-referendum basis. So because the 2013 C bonds, which were refunded today by the 2021 B bonds, were referendum bonds, those bonds would not be subject to this debt service extension base. This is only for non-referendum bonds. And your debt service extension base does increase annually by CPI, but because we obviously don't know what CPI will be in the future, we only know what your debt service extension base is for sure right now. And that is the solid red line reflected on the graph there. The dotted red line assumes a 1.5% growth in your debt service extension base, because in all likelihood, there will be CPI in the future. And so we're just estimating it at 1.5%. The blue lines, the blue bars rather, reflect the results of the financing today. And the gray backdrop behind the blue bars reflect the annual debt service payments for your limited bonds, your debt service extension base constrained bonds, had there been no refunding. And so you can see there's a little bit of a gap, roughly $55,000, $56,000, $60,000 between the top of the gray backdrop and the top of each blue bar. And that reflects the savings that were generated today from the financing. The orange bar is the new money borrowing, the $900,000 that was borrowed in addition to the refunding in today's 2021A financing. And so you can see that we structured that to exactly hit what your debt service extension base is for this year. And in future years, you would employ the same strategy. Determine what your debt service extension base is for that year, and then borrow such that the amount exactly hits your debt service extension base, taking into account, of course, the debt service on the 2021 A bonds that will be that the district will have on its books for the next 6, 7, 8 years. So then moving on to the 2021 B financing.
Actually, I have a question before
Sure.
we move on
Yep.
about going back to slide 5.
Yes.
So I noticed that KeyBank, UBS, and Robert Beard are all pretty clustered. They're
Yes.
clustered pretty close together, and as you pointed out, Northland had a significantly lower TIC offering.
Yes.
I was wondering what was their explanation of how they were able to offer such a significantly lower amount? Because I
Yeah.
mean that's such an anomaly. I want to know a little more about it.
Sure. So just to get into a little bit of the mechanics of how the auction occurs. So when these underwriters they all log into the portal that the bond issue is being presented on, and they all submit bids, but they don't know what the other firms are submitting as bids. They only know what they want to buy the bonds at, what interest rate they want to buy the bonds at, and there's no opportunity for them to see what other underwriters are bidding and then improve their bid if they can see that they are not the best bid. They have one opportunity, and so they put their best foot forward and buy the bonds at whatever level they think the bonds should be purchased at.
Right, but in their bid packet, what was
Mhm.
the explanation for their ability to offer such a low rate?
Yeah, so they don't provide that kind of explanation, but my theory would be that in the market right now, interest rates are very, very low right now relative to history. And there is incredible demand right now for municipal bonds. And you see that in almost every metric that we follow. And particularly so with the AA plus rated credit, you're going to see investors really clamoring for your bonds in a high credit quality bonds that you have. And so my thought was they just really wanted the bonds. It's in all likelihood the role of the underwriter is to buy the bonds from the district and then resell them to their investors. So in all likelihood, they had investors already lined up for your bonds because, like I said, investors are clamoring for high credit bonds. So they were able to really take no risk in buying your bonds because they probably had investors lined up already.
But that's just your theory, you didn't ask?
That's correct. That's just my theory. Yeah.
And historically, like, have you worked with Northland Securities before? Like, what do you know about their particular organization?
Firm.
I'm sorry, don't mean to be hard on you, but
that's okay.
like anomalies always make me want to ask more
Sure,
questions.
sure.
Right? It's kind of like with horse racing. They test the winners and they test the horses that run way off form. It's the same kind of thing.
Right, right. So in this situation, we didn't work with Northland at all, right? They just showed up on the day of sale this morning, and decided to buy your bonds. And in fact, there are times Northland has bought some of our clients' bonds before, for sure. So I know of their firm, but there are times when firms that I've never even heard of will show up, submit a really strong bid, and buy the bonds. But they're a firm that's based, I want to say, based in Minnesota. And they are very active, in particular, in bank qualified bonds, which are bonds that are, so the district can issue bank qualified bonds if it's going to issue less than $10 million in a calendar year, $10 million of tax exempt bonds in a calendar year. And when that happens, banks that can invest in these bonds get an incremental tax deduction on the taxes that they pay. So bank qualified bonds are kind of their own little market, and the bank qualified bonds are typically sold with lower interest rates. Northland focuses specifically in the bank qualified market, more so than in the non-bank qualified market. So that may have been one of the reasons why they were able to submit such a strong bid. The investors that they have, that they're going to sell the bonds to, specifically desire bank qualified bonds. If you notice KeyBank, UBS, and even Robert W. Baird, they're much more notable names. You probably have heard of UBS, you probably have heard of KeyBank, you may have even heard of Robert W. Baird. So their investor base is probably a lot, not necessarily focused only on investors who purchase bank qualified bonds. Northland has that kind of investor pool where they specifically focus on bank qualified bonds.
Okay, I just wanted to ensure that it wasn't just based on the TIC, that there was in fact due diligence conducted regarding this organization, given the anomaly.
Yeah, I mean, we're familiar with the organization, and they are active in our space for sure. So, we wanted to make sure that the district received the lowest cost of financing, and in fact, as financial advisors, we have a fiduciary duty to the district, right, to ensure that every recommendation that we offer the district is in the best financial interest of the district. So, if we were to recommend that the district take, UBS's bid at 81 basis points, which is significantly higher than Northland's, we would have to have a very, very, very good reason why we would recommend that. And
Oh, of course, but I'm just saying as part of your fiduciary duty, I would think that you would also do a little bit of investigating into the winning bid as well.
sure. If you'd like, we can always call up Northland and ask them what their thoughts were on this particular level.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, and we can report back on that.
Thank you.
Sure. So then, moving on to slide 9. These are the bid results from the 2021 B bonds. And you can see that for the 2021 B bonds, there were actually 5 underwriters that submitted bids. And the underwriting firm that submitted the lowest bid on this one, or the lowest interest rate, was the Baker Group at a true interest cost of 1.375%. And then on slide 10, the estimated refunding results back in July, when my colleague Bob presented, indicated aggregate savings of $1.225 million, $1.246 million, and on a net present value, that was $1.1 million. And then as a percentage of the par refunded, it was 18.34%. And so you can see this one was a far more robust refunding result. And again, every indication that the district should move forward with the refunding. And the true interest cost that we were estimating at this time in July was 1.52%. And then moving on to slide 11, we can see the actual results from today's sale. The total gross savings was 1.35 million, and on a net present value basis, it was 1.2 million. And as a percentage of the par refunded, it was over 20%. And this, of course, is based on a true interest cost of the 1.37% that we saw the Baker Group submit from the sale this morning. So just an absolutely great refunding result for the district. So then moving to slide 12, this is a snapshot of the district's total debt portfolio. And again, the district has non-referendum debt as well as referendum debt. So we kind of separated the two, as well as provide an aggregate towards the right side of the page. The left side of the page has the non-referendum debt. And you can see the box shaded in I guess, peach color is the 2013 A bonds that were refunded from today's bond sale. And you can see then in the blue column, the negative numbers, the numbers in parentheses, are the amount that debt service was reduced as a result of today's sale. And it also includes the roughly $900,000 of additional borrowing that was part of the 2021 A sale. And then a similar summary on the right-hand side of the referendum bonds. So moving on to slide 13, unless there are any questions on slide 12. I know there's a lot of numbers on this page. But if there are no questions on slide 12, we can move to slide 13. And the way that the Northland Securities bought these bonds was they bought it as a term bond, meaning that the maturity, the full amount of the maturity matures in 1 year. The full amount of the bond issue matures in 1 year. You can see that 4.135 million matures in December 1 of 2028. But the district is not going to pay the full $4.1 million in 2028. It's still going to make annual payments leading up to that. But this is a kind of structuring preference of the firm that bought it, the Northland Securities firm that bought your bonds. And we agreed to that in order to receive the very aggressive bid that they submitted. And you can see then on slide 14 that, in fact, you're not paying that $4.1 million all in December of 2028. We are breaking it up into smaller pieces annually in each year beginning in December of 2022. So it's just kind of a structuring nuance that Northland preferred. And since they provided such a strong bid, that was an easy decision to make. On the other hand, the 2021B bonds on slide 15, those were structured as serial bonds. So the bond issue actually had principal amounts maturing in each year up through between 2026 and 2033. And you can see the actual principal amounts, the maturity value, kind of in the center of the page of slide 15. And then on slide 16 are the semi-annual payments that the district will be required to make in order to pay back the 2021B bonds. And then slide 17 is just some final steps of the financing. As I mentioned, the bonds, both the 2021A and the 2021B, close on October 7th. And there are some steps that need to be taken between now and October 7th just to complete the entire process. So with the ordinance, I believe, that was submitted tonight, the district will approve of the bond sale. And various closing documents will be sent to the district for signatures. The district will aggregate those signatures, send them back to Chapman and Cutler. Chapman and Cutler is the law firm that's providing all the legal services on this transaction. And then they will send those documents to the county clerk on behalf of the district in order to file the financings with the county. The district is required to send certain wires to Amalgamated Bank of Chicago. Amalgamated is the paying agent for the bonds. So what that means is, there are investors that own your bonds after today's sale, and they obviously will be receiving the ultimate payment. But the question is, how do we get the funds from the district to those investors? And the way that you do that is by sending your payment to Amalgamated Bank of Chicago. They are your paying agent, and then they are able then to get the bonds or the funds to the appropriate owners of your bonds. And so these are various amounts that needs to be wired in order to complete the process. And then the bonds close on October 7th, as we mentioned earlier. So I know that was a lot of information, but in a nutshell, it was a great result for the district. So, any other questions?
Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to adopt Ordinance 21-3, an ordinance providing for the issue of 4,135,000 general obligation limited tax park bonds series 2021A of the Park Ridge Park District, Cook County, Illinois, for the payment of land for parks, for the building, maintaining, improving, and protecting of the same and the existing land and facilities of said park district, for the payment of the expenses incident thereto for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds of said park district, providing for levy of direct annual tax to pay the principal and interest on said bond, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to Northland Securities Incorporated.
Second.
Thank you. May we please have a roll call vote?
Any questions?
Any questions?
No questions? Okay. Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Hulting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving right along, I move to adopt ordinance number 21-4, an ordinance providing for the issue of $5,355,000 general obligation refunding park bonds series 2021B of the Park Ridge Park District, Cook County, Illinois, for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds of the said park district, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the Baker Group LP. Any questions, discussion?
Second.
Any discussion?
Commissioner Hulting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Grau.
Yes.
Thank you. I yield the floor to Commissioner Bindi.
Thank you. All right, next up is report from Superintendent Armour for Recreation. And let's see, I was going to ask you, sorry. How did the job fair go today?
Well, from what we heard before this meeting started, it's this evening. It
Right.
wrapped up about half an hour ago, and we heard it's going very well. So we hope to get many qualified applicants from this.
I hope so. Good. All right. Thank you. Or
That's the
proceed.
word.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see. So my report begins on page 82. We've wrapped up our summer concerts. Our pools have closed. Besides the spray pad here, it's open through Sunday. And the batting cages have also ended their season. I did want to specifically point out, I know I said this last month as well, but we had another lifeguard audit, and we received another 5 out of 5 ratings for this summer. So we really ended and had the whole summer on a fantastic rating, despite the challenges and the, the lack of staff and lifeguards that we had there as well. They did a great job, and everyone was just thrilled. All of our autumn programs have started. There's so many things to highlight throughout the report. As you can see, we continue to see mostly growth throughout the program areas, or at least holding steady. However, as we've been talking about for several months here, staffing is still needed in many areas across the district, including Beyond the Bell, which is brought up tonight. There's been many initiatives to get the word out, and qualified staff is being hired as quickly as they can apply. But we're just not getting applicants that we've seen. This is not the norm, especially for Beyond the Bell. While finding staff for that program specifically can be challenging just because of the time of day, early in the morning, and then, in the middle of the afternoon, late evening. We've not historically been in this position in the past, and in years prior to COVID, we've accommodated participants who've registered by the deadline that's set in order for staff to be properly trained in time for the program to begin. So the lack of applicants we're seeing across the board, I know we've been talking about this for many months. It's a new problem for us, and I'm sure you have all heard we're not the only business experiencing this. It's unfortunately a nationwide issue, and every corner you turn and business you go by, there's help wanted signs everywhere. Staff continues to get the word out again and hire applicants as long as they're qualified as quickly as they can. The amount of time and effort staff and HR have spent this year on recruiting has been, again, extraordinary and out of the ordinary. And as already mentioned, we hope to get some applicants tonight at the job fair as well. So that's the update on staffing, and if there's any specific questions about my report or the participation numbers, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do we have a starting minimum wage?
Pardon me?
Do we have a starting minimum wage?
It varies for each program.
Is
But
it
yeah, it's
like at least $10 or no, more than that?
for minimum
Anything?
wage.
Yeah, in general, I don't know.
Yeah, it's right now it's 11,
Okay,
and it'll be 12 next year.
okay. Yeah. Cindy, did you have something? Or?
Correct. Correct.
I couldn't hear it. Did Cindy just ask a question? I couldn't hear it.
Sorry. 51 people moved off the waiting list last month.
Okay.
And thinking out of the box, I will be working 1 day a week at Beyond the Bell. So I'm not working, I'm volunteering. So
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Can you tell us a little more about Oktoberfest next week?
Sure.
Do you need volunteers for anything?
Yes.
Other than dunk tanks or something like that? I don't know. I'm not interested in that.
Hold on, let me pull that up. Yes, it's not. Oh, it is next week already.
Yeah.
It's flying by. Yes, I can tell you the details. We will have bands, we will have food, we will have a kids area with wristbands. I believe it runs from noon till 9. Some various, food vendors, beverages. So we do have time slots, and we are in desperate need of volunteers for that as well, because
For the what now?
we're in desperate need of volunteers for that as
Just in
well.
general or what?
In general,
Okay.
yes. For
Okay.
different booths.
Contact you or contact who? Who's in charge? Amy?
Amy would be, but
Amy.
yes, if you want to
Okay.
contact me, I could
All right.
get her the information.
Very good.
Yes, please come out.
And a couple bands or what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. Nice. Anything else? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
I wonder if there was more audience comment on that or not.
Say it again?
I wonder if there was more audience input on that.
Oh.
Is that, no? Okay.
I just wanted to say that, I appreciate the comments, concerning Beyond the Bell. And I know that it's been a concern, and I, commend the staff for trying to work with what they've got. And I know it's a concern that all of us are aware of and trying to deal with. So thanks for making the comments.
Oh, I have a question then. So in your recruiting efforts, what kind of feedback have you been getting from people that would be potential Beyond the Bell employees? Really, the people who are applying are interested in the position. But besides that, if they're, when we ask people, it's either the time of day or, their availability. I would say the lack of interest from what we're hearing, besides nobody applying, is just, that they're not available that time of day. I was just curious if you'd gotten any other insights from any feedback. Not that I've heard, no. But I could certainly ask the staff if they're, we've done monetary incentives for current staff to recruit. If a staff member works a certain time, we've, put it out there on places that we've never had to advertise before. We've paid to be on a college network. The places we always do at the high schools and local colleges, but it's now on, Indeed, Glassdoor, Simply Hired, Resume, every college we could think of. We've reached out to legislators. They've put on their job boards, the chamber, all of the social media we usually do. It's, we've reached out to churches.
I mean, I think it's good for people in the public to realize that it is something the district is taking seriously, and to know that you are taking measures that are way beyond what you would do in a normal year in order to try to fill these gaps.
Yeah, it's definitely not a problem that we're used to, and it's frustrating for the staff as well because we're used to offering as much as we can for everyone, and we don't usually have wait lists that we can't accommodate, so it's frustrating for our team as well.
I'm sure. But thank you for your continuing efforts, and hopefully more fruit will be reaped from that.
I hope so.
I think Melissa has a question.
Oh, there you go.
I think we talked in the last meeting about the question of whether someone who has a child in the school could receive care for their child if they were an employee. Since there's did we get an answer to that?
Yes, I did, and I apologize if I didn't follow up with you on that directly. And yes, we have made exceptions for that in the past, but it's only been requested actually once. So
Okay,
we don't,
that's
most often if somebody, needs the program then they're working, or they're not interested in working the program because they'd rather be doing something else with their child. So when we've asked people, if they're interested in doing that, when we have asked some staff who work other programs or to try and recruit that way as well, most recently.
okay. And then in the past, how far before the beginning of school, I'm forgetting what the usual timeline is for being able to accommodate the wait list. Like how much notice do parents have before the school year begins in general?
We normally have a cutoff deadline, so I believe it was the first, off the top of my head, the first week of August. And that's really to, recruit and train everybody. And so that's the normal time frame. We'd have our, the majority of our wait lists accommodated, but then people continue to sign up. So, 2 years ago, we would ask our we'd normally have subs, hey, can you work Tuesday, Thursday? We'd have subs as backup. So we'd enlist our subs for the first few weeks until we had more people hired and trained. So normally our wait list would be taken care of within the first few weeks. But a lot of people do wait till they sign up to the last minute. So it's a matter of training and hiring at the same time then too.
So just to clarify, in a typical year, if people are registered by August 1, they have about a couple weeks. They know 2 weeks out from the school year starting that they have the child care covered if they register in a timely manner.
Yes, that's generally what has happened in the past. This year has just really been an anomaly for us.
Yes, understood. I hear and appreciate the comments about this year and know that it's a big problem. And I'm also have my eye at the future and if there are any improvements we can make in the future. But I think that's a conversation for another time. So thanks for the info.
Sure. We're open to anything that you see from your perspective that we can improve upon, for sure.
Well, thank you, April, and good luck with the hiring. All right, looks like back to you, Melissa, with Buildings and Grounds.
Oh, wait, I think
I'm going to turn it.
Wait, no. One more item on our end.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we have a motion, right?
Oh, golly, I have to I speak. How about that? Wow, I never do this. Okay, let's see here. Okay, suggested motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 21-5, an ordinance authorizing the sale of used personal property owned by the Park Ridge Park District. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? April, you want to explain a little, or?
Sure. This is in our South Park Gymnastics Studio. We have some very outdated equipment that is no longer used or no longer able to be used. So, we're going to try and sell this equipment and next year replace a few of them, but there's some things that we just don't even use anymore. So,
All right. Should we have a roll call?
Sure.
All right.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Aye.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Hulting,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Looks like now I can turn it over to Commissioner Halting for Buildings and Grounds report. Thank you.
And I will turn it over to Terry, who I cannot see on the camera, for the Buildings and Grounds update. Hi. What's going on, Terry?
Hi, how are you? Well, I'm staying very brief this evening, which is not my normal role here, but my report begins on page 84. It's at the very end, and I would be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I don't think I've ever seen a vandalism report that long. That's really sad.
It is sad, although I'd have to say that I think there was one a little bit longer a couple months ago, but it is pretty sad. We are seeing quite a bit of vandalism, and it's continuing. Some of these things are minor in nature, and some are bigger, and it's definitely becoming more and more of a trend since I've been here, unfortunately. We have actually increased on our park patrol. We've increased our involvement with and our communication with the police staff, and everyone's working to curb these things, and we can't be everywhere at the same time, unfortunately.
Well, the good news is Hinckley's not the hot spot, so that's the good news. If there is good news.
Did you get cameras at Hinckley yet? The ones at the skate park?
I don't believe those have been replaced yet. I've been working with Manager O'Leary to get the new wiring done, and we're going to be working on some of that in conjunction with lighting project that's going to happen out there, I believe. So we have a little efficiencies and costs. So.
I just want to clarify the baseball statue's broken. That was not at South Park. That's at Kalina, correct?
That is correct. It's
Yeah, but
it
there
is
is
the
a South Park and there's Kalina as well. So
yeah.
Southwest Park.
It's at
the south part of the park, or
it's at Kalina Field
Yeah.
at South Park.
Okay.
At the entranceway there off of.
Yeah, it was really sad to see. I saw they put some cones on just to prevent people from getting hurt on it. It's really sad that someone did that to those.
It is, and I've spoken obviously with Gary about that, and they'll be removed, and they're not anticipating replacing them,
It's really
unfortunately.
sad.
Any other questions for Terry?
So are we thinking that for next year's budget, we're going to have an increased security camera budget? Because, this is just,
I'll leave-
joking, but actually in all seriousness, because this is getting, it's disgusting, and it just seems like it's getting worse. And I know that it's really demoralizing for, local people, and it's, I'm sure, very demoralizing for your staff that's, been down some employees since the pandemic and is trying to keep up with everything else, and then has to deal with these disgusting acts of vandalism as well.
Yeah, I would defer to Sandra on the budget for the cameras, but beyond that, I would say that, we have been increasing our cameras all the time. Quite often the cameras catch the after effects and it doesn't really curb um, the vandalism. I mean, it can help, and we have caught people. We have been able to get retribution on some things from time to time. But I would just take the opportunity to remind everyone to remain, vigilant. And if you see something out in the parks and in the neighborhood that looks out of place, you need to say something, because don't just expect that the camera's going to take care of it and the police are going to know who the kids are on the camera and they're going to be able to know to go to their house. I mean, that's a lot of different things to go the right way. So I mean, people really need to be involved in saying things and trying to curb this sort of behavior. And it happens at home, finding out where your kids are and what they're doing. And that's really going to be the best way to handle this.
Oh, and I actually had a question too about the main park, because I know there was like a Facebook posting about the playground park part being broken for the preschool playground. And I mean, the description on Facebook is what it is, but it was a pretty horrific description. And I just wanted a little clarification about what actually happened there.
So there's what's called a play panel. It's up on a deck. It's kind of that section that goes in between poles that helps. It either has activities on there for the kids to do and keeps you from falling off the edge. Some of the parts and pieces on that were damaged and ripped off or removed, and so it had some open holes in it. Staff was able to make some cover those holes with plywood so that it wasn't a hazard while we wait for the replacement parts to come in. So. I mean, it is. They cause damage to this piece, for sure, and it needs to be replaced. But it's not like they ripped the poles out of the ground or anything
There
like
was
that.
no danger of like a slide collapsing on a preschool or anything.
No, if there was, we wouldn't have the. I mean, we have certified playground inspectors on our staff, and we sent them over immediately to check it out when we heard about it and made sure that it was safe. So.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, both of my kids went to the Park District preschool and played on that playground. And it just made me really particularly sad to hear that that playground had been targeted. All right, thank you.
Are there cameras at Maine, Harry?
We do have cameras there. They cover many areas of the facility, the entranceway and exits. The angle in which they cover the playground is not optimal, but it does get some of that. It wasn't helpful in this particular incident.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big park. So
Yes,
I feel like there's been a lot of vandalism there in particular.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Terry?
Yeah, well, I don't want to like blindside you, but so if you can maybe report back. But I have heard reports that the field conditions at Hinckley on the football field are really bad, to the point of maybe being dangerous. So I don't know if you have any update on that or.
Yeah, the field conditions at Hinckley are less than desirable right now. I don't believe that I would consider them dangerous. We have been in contact with football, who is the primary user right now. We are going to be we did treat today for grubs. We identified grubs, and a couple days ago we put out our notice to the affiliates per our lawn care application policy to make them aware. Waited our 2 days, and then today we put out our application. We are also working and using a different grass seed to help overseed that. One that germinates extremely quickly that I've used in the past. So I encourage staff to go get that. We picked that up and put down some additional grass seed, and we'll be having the irrigation on to get that started. So hopefully, it's not going to be great, but hopefully it'll be a little bit better here in the next week or so.
Yep. Is that partly related to the drought or climate conditions?
So yeah, I mean, I would relate that somewhat to the drought. What happens is obviously, the beetles need a place to lay their eggs, and that's how we get grubs. The grubs are the larvae of the beetle, and so they are looking for a soft ground to go to lay their eggs in. When you have drier conditions, they're going to go find the places that are irrigated, and since we have athletic fields that have irrigation, they're more prone to look for those areas. So grub unfortunately, grubs can come up just out of nowhere. You're keeping an eye on things, you're looking, you're scouting for these, and it can slip by you. And by the time you notice it, it's like, it's already a big mess because the skunks and animals are coming out and digging it. It's usually not the grubs that actually cause the damage. It's the animals that are going in there to eat the grubs, and they've got limited food supplies, and they're all going, oh, that's just the safe place to go find them. So they are causing the damage there. So yeah, it is somewhat because of the drought. If we had heavy rains and everyone's grounds were nice and lush, it would be spread out through everyone's yard, and you wouldn't see damage. It's always there. It's just it's compacted into that location right now. So.
And on the Hinckley grub topic, so was just the football field areas treated, or were other parts too? Because like a week or so ago, my family was there watching my son's baseball game, and my dog dug up a grub. So, and we were nowhere near the football field.
It was the athletic field areas. Staff determined what areas needed it. The way we described it to the athletic affiliates was that we were going to be treating those athletic fields at Hinckley Park for the grubs. So
Oh, and Wesley is, available for grub digging if you need it.
I'm not sure that helps our situation with the turf, but thank you for the offer.
Don't believe that's a good turf grass practice. Anyone else? We're really trying to get Terry to work since we had a short report. All right, so is it Commissioner Leduc?
Yes.
Sorry, I have to go back. I have to toggle on my iPad. It's never a good scene.
Yep, it's me in policy. So
Okay, policy.
Policy. Gail sent me the updated commissioner policies with the attorney's comments. So I'm going to go through that, and we'll have another round and hopefully have that ready to present soon. And also Sandra sent me financial policies, and so I met with her Tuesday morning, and we discussed my comments on those. So yeah, we're rolling on the little policy updates. So that's where we're at. And now I'll turn it over to Commissioner Coyne for intergovernmental.
Commissioner Coyne and Intergovernmental has nothing to report this month, so I turn it back to the chair.
I have an intergovernmental question, Commissioner Coyne.
Yes, ma'am.
Have any of the, regarding Beyond the Bell, have any of the school board members reached out to you about the Beyond the Bell situation? Has it been flagged by those folks for the district, or has it not come up?
It has not come up, at least to my attention. I don't think that,
Okay.
It hasn't come up to my attention, so.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on. Communications and correspondence. Is there any communications or correspondence?
Yeah.
Gail's shaking her head. Okay, any new business? All right. Then I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. All in favor?
Oh, wait, second.
Oh, sorry. Oh my God, I caught it from you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.